Assuming nothing happens in the first 15 seconds. I'm gonna be right back. I'll just steal Wardy's. Observer feed, there you go. Right, be right back. Alright. Anything happen? No? Okay. Cool. Already showing us the brilliantness that is probe harassment. Zoomed out. Don't know what's happening there. There we go. So both of them went for some very straightforward PvT build last game. Not a whole lot of risk-taking. Clem, 1x expand, 1/1/1, 3rd CC. Mana with a Blink Stalker opener into Colossus off of 3 base. It's kind of the most middle-of-the-road stuff you can do. With some very appropriate scouting as well for a faster sentry over a good number of Stalkers or Adepts to try and harass. Safe play from both of them. And Mana was, at points, very close to really winning that last game. He was never super close to actually getting the GG from Mana, or from Clem rather, but Mana was getting there. If he had been able to push a little bit more, a little bit longer, Warp Prism availability when there wasn't type stuff, then yeah, maybe he actually pushes to a win. Clem was two times, I would say, was really on the edge of being overpowered. That a worse Terran absolutely would have been overpowered. But was able to hold on and then continue on with the good pacing that he showed us of this matchup, which was to go from, you know, the Bio Ball into the Liberators, which ended up being a vulnerable point when he had not as many Liberators as he would like, not as much Bio in the right position, but was able to, as I said, kind of push it back, bring it back from the brink, and get to the Liberator count that was then able to bully Mana so effectively. Clem is changing things up for our second game. He's got a factory with a reactor as an opener. Hellions coming across the map, only 2 of them, so they'd still 2-shot probes. But they do come a bit faster, so you can try and get in. Whereas if you wait for 4 Hellions, they might actually be entirely blocked out. In this case, Mana is able to just barely get that wall off. Now, it kind of sucks, because this wasn't a wall off from the very get-go. The gateway on the low ground wall off. So you have a gateway to the next core, and then whatever you want in here that we see some other players do. So, unfortunately, Mana had to build 3 gateways right there, which is a little bit expensive if he cancels one. And then just, in general, has 3 gateways, as opposed to maybe just 2. If he wants to go into a good macro game, we saw that in the last game. He only went to 2 gateways, didn't really produce very much. But that Clem also changed something up. Mana is doing the same thing. Unfortunately for Mana, it is nice to have Phoenix against this Widowmine drop. The Phoenixes do not find the Widowmine drop until it is already hitting. And every Widowmine will get the shoot. Now this could have been a lot worse. And it could have been a little bit better. Could have been a lot better, could have been a lot worse, actually. One more Wood of Mine trying to sneak its way out or in, I'm not sure, is going to be picked up. Mana has not forgotten about the medevac in the main base. Clem is trying to hide that. Actually does get to burrow the Wood of Mine, though. His Phoenix didn't have enough to pick up. So this is kind of the conundrum, the kind of the weird thing about Wood of Mine drops against Phoenix play. Theoretically, Phoenixes will take care of this. They chase down medevacs, or at least ensure that they die, so they can't come back again later. They can pick up Wood of Mines as they root, so they don't actually root, and then they get destroyed. And they survive a Wood of Mine shot, which can't be said for Stalkers, which, you know, if you misplay, you can lose a decent amount of cash. But all of that really only comes into play when they're properly positioned and anticipating them as well. As soon as they're just out of position, well, what do mines do is what would always do. They will pop off on the probes that you're not paying attention to, and it feels nice that you can clean it up. It feels nice you can catch all those medevacs, ideally. It still is so much better if they actually are able to be there and cause you to only lose... Well, how many Wood of Mines was that? Ideally, it would have lost 6 probes or even less if you had picked up a couple before they fired. But instead, it's 13 probes. Now, when you look at that, you know, that the 9 in the main base or whatever it was looked like it was like one of those, oh, well, that's all he needed. Well, I mean, look at the actual resources lost. 2 medevacs, 6 Wood of Mines went down for only 13 probes. That's actually not that impressive. And I guess if Wood of Mines were only minerals, it'd be a little more impressive, but they're not. They also cost gas. So Mana, stay the course, continue producing probes, continue on with the rest of your build, and that amount of probe damage is not actually that bad. Now, Clem not only gets a little bit of probe damage done to his opponent, he also gets that bit of scouting. He also does get a bit of that map control, knowing that Mana is going to be on the back foot, building up his eventual Phoenix counts, Colossus counts, going into Stalkers, not really set up to do any push. So he gets to kind of just do his thing, which is set up his own 3 bases, get some defensive structures, I guess Sim City a little bit here and there, and then wait for his Stim combat shields, and his 1-1. He would go for a double engineering bay build, which means that Mana, with Phoenix and Colossus being pumped out first here, plus the removal of 13 probes. Yeah, okay, maybe he doesn't have a very fast upgrades whatsoever. And he really doesn't. His upgrades only, his forge, only halfway done. But he is at least making up for some lost time with double forge. Unfortunately, his opponent also double upgrades. So that's definitely in Clem's favor. Clem has upgrades. Clem has a good bio ball, but Mana is going to have 2 Colossus, a shield battery to work with, and hopefully this high ground. Phoenix is also going to try and do what they can. 5 of them do manage to grab a Cyclone without dying. Zealots are going to be warped in. Now actually returning home, realizing the attack is on the way. Mana definitely shouldn't be pushing into this. Unfortunately, that means the tank's going to siege up. That's the conundrum for him right now, is that you want to get ahead of these tank pushes, kind of start shaving off Marines if you can. But you can't get yourself out in the open, so the army just concaves on top of you. It's tricky. But I do like that Mana brought back this Warp Prism. Now, when charge finishes, they'll be fantastic for getting on top of these tanks and forcing them to misfire. The Phoenixes are also going to help against this high ground problem. As you can see. They can guard against the further drops onto the high ground, or just try and get a couple of units should they go too far forward like this Viking. Now Mana is grabbing a 4th Nexus behind this, as it looks like he was banking quite a bit. He has 1,500 gas, which really would love to go into all those Templars, and that's exactly what's going to happen as he finishes up all of his pylons as well. Marauders actually try and dive on top of a very fragile army, but aren't quite capable of killing anything. Clem's getting a little eager here. The Archons have not been formed, surprisingly. Mana being kind of absurdly patient right now. He's only microing his Phoenix, but I'm just like, well, the Archon should come in. Feedbacks are pretty good, but I really thought it was going to be an Archon. There, finally we have it. 1-1 is almost done as well, so Clem originally having such a significant upgrade lead is now at least evened out, although a little bit shy in that +1 armor. Here come the Zealots and the Archons from the backside as well, not helping as much as they would have if the tanks were also over to the right side. Still help a tremendous amount, as we can see. Clem forced to pick up and evacuate. Mana actually blowing through that attack with all 3 Colossus alive. They weren't protected for a little while there, but it didn't matter because everything was being jumped on. The Colossus were safe because they just couldn't be... There wasn't enough left over for Clem. And now they are once again properly protected by half a dozen Archons. Not a whole lot of really good anti-air left over for Mana, as those Vikings will outrange the Archons. And the Stalkers don't have Blink, so Mana is going to notice that, respect it, and also just know that the Bio Army is still considerable. I mean, it's a lot of Marauders, you don't know what else is being... I guess hidden behind that, and it is a planetary, and that much he does know. This observer's been seeing the mining of a 4th base, and if the 4th base is down in mining, it's a planetary on this map. For sure, for sure. That was a very scary scenario for both players, actually. For Mana, I feel like, again, like a worse Protoss, or one that was a bit more ill-prepared and ill-split, you know, comes in from the side with only the Zealots, and only from one side, and it's not that big of a deal to clean up. Then his Colossus are in fact left alone, and they are pounced upon by 6 remaining Marauders that can easily target down Colossus since they live through their shots. They could have gone a lot differently. But what I also mentioned during that fight was that I think it could have gone even a bit better from Mana if Clem's tanks were still stuck in this position, right? He had started to move more aggressively into the natural, which, I mean, either way, either they're tucked into a corner not helping and being hit by Zealots, which they do nothing against, or they're out in the open being hit by the entire army. I mean, seems like eventually Mono is going to be able to dislodge that kind of no matter what, thanks to him showcasing a lot of patience. Once again, setting up a surround. Mana has been damn good about this in both games so far. This one not as impressive as the one on Death Thor, and in fact, it might turn around him a little bit here as the Archons get depleted thanks to some good EMPs. The Colossus are actually left quite alone, but being saved from the Viking shots thanks to the presence of a Warp Prism, which also provides those Zealots coming in from the backside as well. And this has actually turned once again over into Mana's favor. Those Zealots being absolutely critical. Those 3 Colossus barely alive and kicking, being absolutely fantastic. But here we go, the Zealots have been depleted, and the Colossus are mostly left alone, but no, 2 Immortals show up and save the day once again. This was a wild ride of a battle, but Mana and his Warp Prism control, this is the type of stuff we would see from Mana only after he had lost 40-50 supply and was losing the game. And then we'd see him kick an overdrive and really look quite impressive with his micro. But it feels like in the last year, Mana has been able to be consistent so that when we do see him do some cool micro stuff, it's actually very impactful to the game. And of course, Clem does his own really cool micro stuff. We all know that. He has been doing some good things in these fights, but maybe that last one wasn't good enough. I don't know. Planetary's quite strong. There's the fan out of the Marauders as well, with a decent number of medevacs still healing. Vikings free firing right now on some very weak Colossus, but once again, that weak one is saved. That Warp Prism is so damn pesky. At this point, I would absolutely start focus firing the damn thing, which is what Clem was thinking and Mana was on top of. He's not going to be able to save the Warp Prism with the blink on those Stalkers, but at least will provide a little bit more DPS as the Zealots come through. The Immortals find the tank. A Colossus gets rallied across the map. Another command center is over here. The Immortal is starting to get focus fired down. Actually, no, not quite. As Clem realizes it is time to get the heck out of there, even though he killed the Warp Prism, which was fantastic, not just for finally getting rid of that pesky micro, but also for stopping usually the onslaught of Protoss army. Mana's not giving up quite yet, and has he made a mistake? I'm not sure. Immortal's very low on that health. Vikings starting to take down those Colossus, but the Stalkers reinforcing are going to try and break through a planetary. That doesn't usually work out too well. This must be the oddest experience for Clem. He's like, I killed your Warp Prism. I killed all your Zealots. Get the fuck out of my base. What are you doing? But Mana, recognizing that even reinforcements from his 4th base across the map would be good enough to continue the fight, is able to take advantage of that. I mean, I'm almost positive Clem was thinking something along those lines, like, well, you should leave. Like, this is where you leave. This is where the Protoss leaves. And that's why he brought his command center back, which led to a death. Mana actually was reinforcing, just not with a Warp Prism. Crazy battles between these two. But after all of that, it was like 3 minutes of action. Clem is the one down 30 supply. Almost all in that army, although here we go. Something happening on Mana's side of the map again. Finally, 12 probes, 13 probes going down. Not too shabby, but then Mana actually finding Clem out of position is going to make up for that and more. Grabs the planetary, grabs a couple of SCVs. Can he take the fight? EMPs do pop the immortal shields, but the disruptor comes in, gonna get a pretty damn good shot. And honestly, even without the disruptor, Clem was not prepared to take an engagement. GG, damn. Mana. Put on some serious work. Very impressive.